On my birthday, I got a text from Dad: sold your laptop, your brother needs an iPhone. Be grateful we feed you, also you'll pay his college fees $4,300. I said no chance, he replied, then get out your cutoff. So I left quietly, didn't say a word. The next morning they found what I left on the table. I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing non-stop. At first, I thought maybe someone remembered my birthday. A friend. A forgotten aunt. A message that said something like, "Hope today feels special." Instead, it was from Dad. "Sold your laptop. Your brother needs an iPhone. Be grateful we feed you. My name is Rachel." And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because on my birthday, I didn't get a cake. I didn't get a hug. I got stolen from again. And this time, they had no idea who they were messing with. There was no happy birthday anywhere in the message. Just that brutal sentence, as if the device I worked so hard to afford, my scholarship workhorse, my freedom machine, was something they could pluck away without a second thought. I stared at the screen in stunned silence. Then came the follow-up. Also, you'll pay us college fees, $4,300 by Friday. No explanation. No request. Just an order, the way you'd speak to someone you own. I sat up in bed, the cover still tangled around my legs, and for the first time in years, I felt nothing. Not shock. Not even sadness. Just an eerie, clean kind of silence in my chest. It had happened again. All my life, I'd been second to my brother. When I got into honors classes, they shrugged. When he passed gym class, they threw him a party. When I brought home a laptop, when I bought from tutoring money and part-time shifts at the diner, they said, "Finally, you're starting to contribute." When he wanted the newest iPhone, they sold my contribution. I replied with 2 words, "No chance." 10 seconds later, my screen lit up again. Then get out. You're cut off. Just like that. No discussion. No remorse. Just exile for refusing to fund the favorite child. I stood slowly, packed quietly. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I'd seen this coming. I'd been preparing, just in case. But they didn't know that. To them, I was still the obedient girl who took the abuse quietly and stayed grateful for the scraps. They didn't know that for the past few months, I'd been moving my savings to a private account. That I'd changed the password to the tuition portal. That I had already arranged housing through a scholarship mentor, just in case. They didn't know what was coming, but they would. I walked into the kitchen. No one was home. Just a sink full of dishes and a "Happy Birthday, Jason" banner from last year still curled above the window. I sat at the table, took out the manila envelope I had labeled 3 weeks ago. If they ever kick me out. Inside, printed financial statements, withdrawal records, my statement revoking responsibility for my brother's tuition, a copy of the email I'd sent to his university the night before, and a letter. A short one. "You didn't raise me. You just drained me. This account is now empty. So am I of apologies." I placed it in the center of the table. Then, I left. No slamming doors. No dramatic music. Just the quiet click of the front door behind me and the cold air of freedom hitting my face for the first time in years. The next morning, I heard everything. My brother was panicking. My mom was screaming. And my dad, he was calling every number he could. I was 10 the first time my parents took something that was mine and handed it to my brother like it had always belonged to him. It was a blue digital camera I'd won in a school raffle, my first real prize. I'd kept it in a shoebox under my bed, taking pictures of flowers, old family albums, anything that made me feel like I could freeze a moment in time before it disappeared. One afternoon, it was gone. I searched everywhere. Asked my mom. She didn't even look up from her phone. "Oh, that? We gave it to your brother. He needed something for his school project. Be grateful it's being used. Be grateful." That was her favorite phrase. Be grateful we feed you. Be grateful you have a roof. Be grateful he's your brother. It wasn't gratitude she wanted. It was silence. They called it parenting. I called it piracy. By the time I was 12, I knew better than to label anything in the fridge mine. My leftovers? Gone. Birthday gifts? Recycled for my brother's needs. Allowance? Only if I reminded them, and even then I had to split it. He got birthday parties, driving lessons, new shoes just because he liked the color. I got his hand-me-downs and a pat on the back if I didn't complain too loudly. The worst part? He didn't even want most of it. He was lazy, sure. Entitled? Absolutely. But I saw it in his eyes sometimes, a flicker of guilt, or maybe discomfort, when my dad handed him something with the words, "We took this from Rachel for you." But he never said no, and that made him complicit. In middle school, when I won the science fair, they left early to catch my brother's basketball game, even though he didn't play that night, just sat on the bench. Mom told me afterward, "You'll have more fairs." He never had another game. I stopped inviting them to things after that. By high school, I knew the rules. Work quietly. Succeed silently. Fund your own future. And most of all, Never outshine your brother. Even when I got accepted into a college prep program, they didn't ask what I'd need. They just asked if my brother could get in too. He couldn't, but that didn't stop them from asking me to tutor him through high school. I did. I even helped him write his college essay. Then last year, he failed 2 classes and lost his scholarship. Who did they call? Me. Not to talk, not to explain, just to pay. Your brother needs to stay in school, Dad said. We all have to make sacrifices. I asked him, when has he sacrificed anything? He said nothing because he couldn't name a single thing. It wasn't just that I was invisible. I was useful. The scapegoat. The backup plan. The disposable daughter they could harvest for convenience and discard the moment. I said no. So when they sold my laptop, it wasn't just theft. It was the final slap. Happy birthday, Rachel. You're still the supply room. But they forgot one thing. I'd stopped stocking the shelves. They thought I'd just swallow it. The sold laptop. The $4,300 demand. The birthday text that didn't even say my name. They thought I'd rage for a moment. Cry into my pillow. Then hand over the money and say, it's fine. I understand. They didn't realize I'd stopped understanding a long time ago. Truth is, I'd been preparing for this. Months ago, after they borrowed $800 from my bank account without asking, again, something snapped. Not loudly. Quietly. The kind of snap you don't hear until the door behind you is already locked. That night, I opened a new bank account under my name only. One with 2-step verification, alerts, and no paper statements. Then I started transferring money slowly. Small amounts at first. Just enough to avoid suspicion. $80 here. $200 there. I closed my student account. Redirected my financial aid to the new one. Got a part-time gig tutoring biology online, paid through an app only I controlled. They thought they still had access. That the family account they used for my tuition and my savings was the only one I had. They didn't know it had been empty for weeks. The only thing in that account now was a note I'd left inside the envelope on the kitchen table. This account no longer exists, just like your claim on my future. Inside that same envelope, I left a copy of the email I sent to my school's finance office. To whom it may concern, I, Rachel Morgan, formally revoke my financial responsibility for Jackson Morgan's tuition, housing, or any related accounts. I am no longer a cosigner, nor will I make further contributions. Documentation attached. I also included a notarized form revoking parental access to my student portal and my own transfer application approved to switch housing and move into a grant-funded apartment across town. I'd already packed most of what I needed, my backup laptop, essentials, documents, and the only photos I cared to keep, a picture with my old high school mentor, not a single family member in sight. The night before I left, I slept like a stone. Not anxious. Not afraid. Just done. They'd always believed they controlled me. But the truth is, they were managing a version of me I left behind years ago. The real me was already gone. When I placed that manila envelope on the kitchen table, it wasn't out of spite. It was a farewell memo. Not a daughter saying, please notice me. Just a woman saying, I've noticed everything and I'm done. I walked out before sunrise, took the bus to my new place, dropped my bags on the floor, sat on the mattress, cross-legged, and listened to the silence. It didn't feel empty. It felt clean, like I'd finally closed a door I was never supposed to walk through in the first place. The first call came at 6:14 a.m. I didn't answer. Then came the text, where's the money? Call me right now. You think this is funny? Your mother is crying. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter and made coffee. Black. Come. Clean. By 7 a.m., my brother's name started flooding the screen. Hey, what did you do? They're freaking out. They said you cleared the account? You need to call Dad. I'm serious. My tuition's due today. I stirred my coffee, watched the steam rise, listened to the peace I'd never known under their roof. At 7:28 a.m., Dad tried to FaceTime me. I declined. Then, again, declined. Then he left a voicemail. His voice had that sharp, fake calm I knew too well. You've made your point. Now grow up and fix it. Your brother needs that money. No, sorry. No, we went too far. Just fix it. Because that's what I'd always been. The fixer. The one who filled the gap, made the payments, accepted the guilt. They never even asked how I was doing. Not once. It took them until 9 a.m. to realize I was serious. That I wasn't hiding in my room. I was gone. They drove to my college apartment. I'd cleared it out the night before, left the keys in the mailbox, and the lock changed. They called my friends. None of them responded. They called my campus counselor. She referred them to the student privacy policy. My dad messaged again. This is betrayal. We raised you better than this. I almost laughed. Raised me? I raised myself between borrowed textbooks and part-time jobs while they planned my brother's birthdays like national holidays. I didn't reply. By noon, the desperation kicked in. Just give us the account access. That's all we need. Just the money. Then we'll talk. That's all we need. It always came back to what they needed. They weren't panicking because I left. They were panicking because I took the control with me. Because for once, when they reached into the drawer labeled Rachel, it was empty. And my brother? He cracked first. Rachel, please. I'm screwed. They told me you'd pay. You always pay. I stared at the screen for a long time. And then, for the first time in my life, I typed without trembling. Not anymore. He replied with 3 words. They're losing it. And I believed him. Because that's what happens when users lose their source. They unravel. I didn't block them. Not yet. I wanted them to sit in it, to see how silence feels when it's finally not coming from me. Because this time, I wasn't just quiet. I was done. The first real crack didn't come from the screaming inside their house. It came from outside when they realized the lies couldn't hold anymore. My brother's tuition was due by Friday, and I had already revoked every legal tie between myself and his account. No cosign, no emergency contact, no backup payer. The financial office had all the documentation. I confirmed 3 times. So when the payment bounced, it wasn't a glitch. It wasn't a delay. It was deliberate. By Monday morning, he was removed from his dorm assignment. By Tuesday, a notice was posted on his student portal. Payment required to reinstate enrollment. He didn't post anything publicly, not yet, but word spread fast. The boy whose parents bragged about his bright future, whose sister always handled the details, suddenly wasn't enrolled anymore. And I hadn't said a word. Not one. But silence, as I've learned, makes noise when people are used to your compliance. On Wednesday, he finally snapped. He posted a blurry Instagram story of a coffee shop table, a textbook, and a bitter caption. Family will pretend to support you until they don't. Then another. Abandonment is real, especially from the ones who owe you everything. Oh. The girl who lent him her textbooks, edited his essays, taught him how to balance a budget I owed him? I didn't respond, but I wasn't the only one watching. My old high school English teacher, Mrs. Langford, commented on the post. She'd always been sharp, kind, and fearless when it came to calling out nonsense. Funny how the kid, who earned everything, got pushed out, and now you're calling it abandonment. Her comment stayed up for 10 minutes before he deleted the story, but it was too late. People started asking questions. A friend of mine from campus messaged me privately. Hey, didn't you used to do everything for your brother? He's posting like you just ghosted him. Sounds fake as hell. Another sent a screenshot of my dad's old Facebook post, bragging about how his daughter was handling her brother's education like a second mother. That was a year ago. Now, they were calling me ungrateful. But the receipts didn't lie. I had documents, emails, screenshots of transfers, proof of every dollar they ever pulled from me. And, even though I hadn't posted anything, my absence was speaking louder than any post could. Because when someone always shows up and then suddenly stops, people notice. My mom tried calling again that night, left a voicemail, soft, sweet, manipulative. You've made your point, sweetheart. Just come back. We'll talk it through. Your family. But I knew better because they didn't miss me. They missed the function I served. And now that the lie was collapsing, the golden child image, the perfect family act, they wanted their scapegoat back. To carry it. To fix it. To clean it. Not this time. This time, the glass house cracked, and I wasn't holding the broom. By now, they'd read the envelope. I knew because my brother texted me. Was that letter necessary? Yes. It was. And not for them, for me. That envelope wasn't an act of revenge. It was a record. A receipt. A memorial to a daughterhood no one protected. Inside, beneath the banking documents and tuition disclaimers, was a single sheet of paper. Lined. Folded. Ink smudged at the corner. A letter that read, to whoever still believes they own me. You didn't raise me. You used me. You used my time, my energy, my silence. You turned my hard work into a resource for someone who didn't care about anything but the next thing he could get without earning it. You gave him everything. You took everything from me. And when I asked for something small like being allowed to keep what I paid for, you told me to be grateful you feed me. So, let's clear it up. I fed myself. When I worked shifts while studying. When I taught myself how to budget because no one else did. When I wrote 2 college essays, one for me, one for him, and now I'm done. I'm not your backup parent. I'm not your proof of good parenting you roll out on Facebook when convenient. I'm your daughter only. And starting today, not even that. You don't get to demand from someone you dismissed. You don't get to scream, ungrateful, at the person who kept your household running in silence. You don't get to steal my voice, then beg me to speak when the walls start shaking. You told me to get out? Perfect. Because I've never felt more at home than I do right now, outside your walls. Good luck. Not out of hate. Out of healing. Rachel. That's what the envelope meant. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the laptop. It was about letting them see, in words, in ink, in finality, that the girl they raised to bend had stood up, and that they no longer had the strength to push her down again. My dad never responded. My mom called twice and hung up. And my brother? He posted a selfie at the gym 2 days later with a caption, "Can't trust anyone these days, but at least I still have me." I stared at it for a second, then closed the app, because that was the point. He still had himself. For the first time in his life, he had to stand on that, and only that. No more lifeline. No more quiet sister to shoulder the shame. No more invisible engine pulling him forward. He was exposed. And I was finally seen. Even if they didn't say it. Even if they never would. Because when you leave the truth on a table, sometimes the loudest sound in the house is the silence that follows. I didn't run away. I walked out. There's a difference. Running is panic. Running is fear. But walking? Walking is a decision. And, the day I walked away from that house, that family, that endless loop of control disguised as care, I didn't look back. My new apartment wasn't much. A mattress on the floor. One chair. A kitchen that needed cleaning. But it was mine. Every inch of it was untouched by their demands. And for the first time in my life, I exhaled. Not a shallow breath. A real one. Deep enough to touch parts of myself I hadn't felt since I was a kid. I worked weekends at a clinic, finished my semester on time, started therapy, paid through a student wellness grant. My therapist asked me in our first session, "What would healing look like to you?" I said, "Freedom." She nodded. "What kind?" I smiled. "The kind where I don't flinch when my phone buzzes." 2 weeks later, I turned off notifications. 3 weeks after that, I started sleeping better. One night, I bought myself a cake. Nothing fancy, just a simple vanilla round with a single candle. It was 2 months late, but I didn't care. I lit the candle. Took a bite. No family. No 4 smiles. No gifts being reallocated. Just me and my birthday. The real one. The one that didn't belong to anyone else. That night, I applied for an internship across the country. A competitive research program I'd once told myself I wasn't allowed to pursue because it would pull me away from the family. Now, that was the goal. I hit submit. 1 week later, I got the call. Accepted. I screamed. Cried. Then laughed so hard it hurt. Not because of the program. Because I realized I hadn't told anyone. And, it felt perfect. I wasn't doing this to prove anything. I wasn't chasing applause. I was finally building a life that wasn't about anyone but me. The next morning, I got a letter from one of my old professors, a woman who always pulled me aside and said, "You're stronger than you think." She wrote, "Rachel, you were never the lost one. You were just stuck in a house that never saw the map you were holding." I pinned that letter to my wall, right above the desk where I planned my new future. New city, new role, new version of me. Not the fixer, not the scapegoat. Not the sister expected to sacrifice everything for a boy who never had to say thank you. I was no longer the girl who stayed. I was the woman who left. 6 months later, my name was on a certificate held up in front of a lecture hall packed with students, mentors, and hospital staff. Academic leadership and research excellence, Rachel Morgan. The applause was real. Earned. No forced family claps. No pity praise. Just people who saw the work, not the drama. Someone snapped a picture as I smiled and accepted the award. I didn't post it, but someone else did. A student from the program I mentored uploaded it with the caption, "This woman is the reason I stayed in STEM. Strongest person I know." It made its way around a bit. A few tags, some resharing, and then somehow, it landed on my brother's feed. He left a comment. Just one word, "Congrats." No emoji. No shade. Just that. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either because by now, I had nothing to defend. No truth to prove. No space left to rent in my head for the people who used to live there. Later that day, my mom messaged me, "Your brother misses you. We all do. It's time to come home." Family is family. I stared at the screen, and then I deleted the message. Not out of cruelty, out of peace. Because I finally understood what they meant by cut off. They thought they were cutting me off for money, but I was cutting them off from access. Access to my time, my energy, my forgiveness on demand. They wanted control. What I left was a legacy. One my future self would thank me for. One built on boundaries, not blind loyalty. The letter I left on the table that day wasn't a tantrum. It was an obituary for the version of me they used like a personal savings account. And now, I was the woman who didn't just survive the collapse. I designed the exit. There's a picture on my desk now. It's not of my family. It's of my hand, gripping a scalpel beside a group of other young women in lab coats. The ones I now mentor. The ones who tell me, "You helped me believe I belong here," and that's the only family I ever needed. They sold my laptop. They sold my birthday. They thought they were taking my future, and I let them think that. But what I left on that table wasn't a breakdown. It was a blueprint. Because when I walked out, I didn't just disappear. I detonated everything they thought they controlled.